If you're an avid video game player in the modern day, you've likely heard of Dark Souls, Elden Ring, the Soulsborne series, or have even played them yourself. These games were made by FromSoftware, and if you're a fan of them, you may know they draw inspiration from From's first game series, Kingsfield. These were a series of first-person hack-and-slash RPGs that were pretty impressive for their time, but are now charmingly retro or uncharmingly clunky, depending on who you ask. But what you may not know is that in 2000, From released a little thing called Sword of Moonlight Kingsfield Making Tool. This was a program for people to easily make their own Kingsfield game, complete with permission to use the world and lore of Kingsfield, and even sell it for money. I guess FromSoftware has always been cool. Eventually, in 2008, someone translated Sword of Moonlight into English, and now there's a small community making games in the engine. Now, I myself barely came across this when looking at Lunacid Tears of the Moon, a prequel to the Kingsfield-inspired Lunacid built in the engine. Then I discovered the Sword of Moonlight website, showing off a bunch of the completed projects, and I had a simple thought. No one's really talking about these much, if at all, online. Let's play them and make a fun and unique video just going over them all. There's quite a few though, so this will just be part 1 of a potentially continuing series. Also, a bunch of them have no English translation, and I don't speak Japanese. I'll do my best with the translator, but I could make a mistake or two here or there. So after playing through the original 2 Kingsfield games, I'll get around to 3 eventually, I began my journey through the Sword of Moonlight Kingsfield fan games. Surely, everything will be fine. Before I properly start, I guess I should give a brief overview of the original Kingsfield games, both in terms of story and gameplay. A refresher would be good. To properly talk about these fan games, I'll have to give some spoilers for the originals. If you're watching this and haven't played the Kingsfield games and are worried about spoilers for them, maybe just go and play the first 2 and come back. It'll make this video a bit better. I should also mention that, while I'm not going to go out of my way to spoil these fan games, I wanted to show them off in my experience playing them. And sometimes that includes their endings. Sometimes. At any rate, the original 3 Kingsfield games are known as the Verdite trilogy because they involve the land of Verdite. The first game has you play as John Alfred Forrester, journeying through an evil catacomb after Verdite's king, Reinhardt III, causes trouble with dark magic. You meet an elf, enchant your dad's sword into the legendary Moonlight sword with the power of the dragon Gyra, and save the day. And so began From's tradition of putting this sword in almost all their games. Kingsfield 2 has you play as Granatiki Prince Alexander Thornton Reganus, friend of John from the first game, who has since become King of Verdite. Problems are arising on the island of Melanaut, and a guy named Necron steals the Sword of Moonlight. You journey to the island to get the sword back, in the process forging his counterpart the Darkslayer with the power of the Dragon Seath, and fight against the Dragon Gyra. I wonder why the Darkslayer never got carried over in the same way as the Moonlight Sword. Both of these games have you walking around in first person, hacking and slashing your way through enemies, and sometimes casting the occasional spell. Killing enemies gives you experience points, that usually drop gold which you use to buy tons of healing herbs, or you save it all up to buy a key item or 2. Apart from leveling up, you gain strength and magic stats the more you use melee and magic. I like this dual progression system. Your standard gameplay loop involves delving into some cave or dangerous area, finding a key or item that allows you to progress, and doing that over and over until you beat the game. There may also be optional areas with useful items or equipment. These games typically have fast travel, but you need to find it first. It's worth it though, as playing a Kingsfield game without it is not the best. At least in the second game they started giving you maps. There's typically a fountain you can drink from to heal you, and once again, starting with the second game, there's glass bottles you can fill with the fountain water for later. Kingsfield 2 really has some good design sense despite some of its issues. It'll be interesting to see which fan games learn from it. And on that note, let's get looking at them. Before we get to the first game though, let's give our proper thanks. Whitvilf, aka Weisvilf, aka JDO, aka John David Osborne, seems to be the guy mainly responsible for translating the original Kingsfield, Shadow Tower Abyss, and the Sword of Moonlight engine itself, among others. If he had help, I'm not seeing it, and I'm sorry for not including you. Either way, it felt rude to not give him a little thanks for a video celebrating the engine, if not just for the translated version of Shadow Tower Abyss. We won't get around to games made using the English version in this video, but still, credit where it's due. Alright then, let's properly start ourselves off with a very fitting entry, the first Sword of Moonlight game, bundled together with the original software to help show it off. A remake of the original Kingsfield, built in the new engine. I had just played the original, so this will be a great point of comparison to see what this engine can do. Surely this will be the definitive version of the game, with all the rough parts fixed up and no problems to speak of. You'd think that, wouldn't you? I know this isn't the best note to start out on, but somehow this version of the game is worse than the original PS1 version from 5 years earlier. But let's start with the positives. For the most part, this is Kingsfield 1, recreated almost completely. I think there's 1 or 2 instances of missing enemies, but the maps seem just about identical. The graphics have technically been improved, and the movement isn't as clunky, although that was a bit of a low bar. The problem with the game is all the fine details. Now, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I swear the balance has been changed. Parts of this game feel significantly more lethal than they were originally. Some enemies also have added ranged attacks, which certainly don't help. Not every enemy needs a ranged attack. You yourself have also been nerfed in the form of the Wind Cutter spell. The iconic Kingsfield Wind spell that goes through enemies and is very useful for groups, now doesn't go through enemies. Why? How could they do that to poor Wind Cutter? This massive problem continues throughout the other games in this engine. But oh, if we're talking about the most mistreated thing compared to the original, the trees. Look what they did to them. They took the cool looking demon trees and put a weird, sexy face filter on them or something. Am I the only one seeing this? They've got lips and what look like eyelashes. 1 or 2 of the enemy designs look odd, but this is just awful. I guess I'll give them credit for making the final boss look cool. The final boss area got made to look more generic though, where I interpreted the original as being either weird stone or maybe flesh. Some of these issues are more problems with the engine though, rather than this specific game. Throughout all the games I played for this video, there were some common problems. There's missing sounds sometimes, mainly when attacking or hitting enemies. The environments feel a bit repetitive, but I don't know how many textures the engine provides. I just know that the original Kingsfield games had brown caves, grey caves, red caves, blue caves, and the Sword of Moonlight games tend to just have brown. But the real issue with the engine is enemies. To start, enemies have an invincibility window when hit, with a pretty annoying side effect. Enemy attacks can hit each other in this engine. This seems to do minimal damage, but it also makes them invincible, so your attacks don't land. In rooms with a lot of enemies, especially enemies with ranged attacks, you'll find yourself needing to time your hits to actually kill anything, on top of dodging like it's a bullet hell. Enemy angle range also seems a bit messed up. In some games with open areas, enemies with ranged attacks would snipe me from a mile away, or just try and attack me through walls. Sometimes they'd even hit. Sometimes you open a door to an area and the enemies are crowded around it or already blasted it with magic. It's a problem. Enemies also tend to respawn very quickly or just whenever you enter or exit a room, but I'm not sure if that's an engine thing or a dev thing. So yeah, the engine's not perfect. In terms of issues specific to the Kingsfield 1 remake, graphically, it has a visibility problem. The original Kingsfield was limited, but that also meant they knew some items would be visible in the environment because of the colors. In this version, since everything is colored more naturally, some things just blend in. If I hadn't just played the original, I would have never seen this key on the ground. Speaking of, picking up items has this delay or something, where I had to mash the button before I could add it to my inventory. No idea why, none of the other games had this issue. There's no fake walls you walk to like the original game, only those you click on and open. Actually, because of this engine's floor textures, it's easier to find all the fake walls. This goes for all the other games too. Another issue I've seen repeated between the games is the save option. Kingsfield games typically use save points, but the save option is listed in the menu under load. I guess they didn't want to make save points useless, so the solution was to just not let you select the option. You'll try to scroll up or down to it and just skip over it. I wonder if they really could just remove it from the menu. Other than that, the cutscene where you get the Sword of Moonlight is kind of lame, and that's really all I've got on this. I mean, it's Kingsfield 1, recreated. It's just a bit worse is all. For showing off the possibilities of the engine, this does the job. But if you were looking for an improved, definitive version of the PS1 classic, this isn't it. It's a good starting point for the video though. Let's see where people go from here. Coming up to our first fan-made work, next we have a game colloquially called Aoi's Project, made by Japanese user Aoi. Now, right off the bat, this game is labeled incomplete. A couple of games I have to look at are labeled incomplete, but incomplete can mean a lot of things. A game that's 90% done is incomplete, but can still be mostly playable and fun. The thing is, with these games being barely documented, I have no idea how incomplete means. I may have to guess when I think a game has nothing more for me to see and end up missing content. but looking at Aoi's project, I think I can safely say this one is very incomplete. Backing up for a bit, what the heck even is this game? Well, it looks like this is considered some of the earliest Sword of Moonlight content ever posted online. Aoi, with the help of a guy named Einsif, made some kind of world and a few test levels. There's a level testing traps, one testing a disappearing floor, one testing a rotating path, and eventually, some guy named Verdite Cat came along, compiled all these test levels and world together, added a warp item, and now we have Aoi's project. I don't think this game got much further than testing stuff out, but I could be wrong. There's no music and little direction, but there is an intro cutscene in the beginnings of a story. In the lore of Aoi's project, you play as Hans in the land of Yggdrasil. It turns out when the Moonlight Sword was made, there was also a counterpart, the Dark Moon Sword. These swords balance each other out, with the Moonlight Sword having the elements of fire, water, earth, air, and light, while the Dark Moon Sword has just 5 elements worth of darkness. Some bad guys are using the Dark Moon Sword to do bad things, so you must take the Moonlight Sword, restore its power, and save the land. So there was at least an idea for a game, probably with a dungeon for each element, but I wasn't able to find much of it or anything online pointing me in the direction of content. I found what I think were the water and earth dungeons entrances, but that's about it. I think this game does have one notable takeaway though, and that's that with no music, this engine gives off a creepy feeling. Playing this, I felt like I was going through one of those haunted games where something spooky was going to pop up and scare me. I think later games try and go for a horror approach, but Aoi's project, probably unintentionally, gave me the idea for horror games field first. Alright then, next up we have another unfinished, untranslated game, and, well, I think it's unfinished, but I'm not sure how much. NeverQuest by developer Stella is immediately more impressive than what we've already seen. While I'm not sure how much of the game there is, it's certainly more than Aoi's project. We start out in a little town area, where an average guy, whose friend Luke says we may be able to make some money by going to the old iron mine and getting some materials. So we grab what's described as a knife in text and set off. Very slowly. This game may just have the slowest movement speed I've ever seen. I'm not even kidding, it's that bad. There's no run button either as far as I could tell. But eventually we enter an overworld with a shining sun and actual music. We see enemies in the distance and I can't attack. I'm pressing all the buttons and I can't attack. I can't open my equipment menu and I don't have money to buy the pretty expensive weapons in the shop. The intro text said I had a knife, but that may be a lie. So I journey forth assuming some random stranger will walk by and give me a sword, and I find some big town in the mountains. There's a ton of people and more shops and what looks to be a functional bank or something. The town had effort put into it. They even programmed the doors to automatically open, which is a nice little thing. But I still have no idea how to get a weapon. Well, I know I'm supposed to go to the mine, and I find it. It's been taken over by orcs, but I'm sure I can find a way to die. I can die. Remember me describing with Aoi's project that it's not always clear how incomplete something is? NeverQuest immediately strikes me as impressive. It's got some actual environments, dialogue, NPCs, an expansive map to very slowly walk through, and a ton of things that make this look like a well-along project. And yet, I can't find a way to defend myself, and I don't know if that's on purpose or if I'm just stupid. And before you start wondering, I'm not sure a single walkthrough or guide for this game exists online. I legitimately want to keep playing because it looks like there's things to discover here, but I just don't know how. I'm already having to translate all the text through my phone to navigate. I can't believe this game had so much effort put into it, only for the developer to not implement attacking and to think this movement speed is fine. Even Aoi's project had attacking. This is either a great prank or I'm missing something. I'm leaving NeverQuest for now without much to say other than it looks very promising, but I may return to see if I can discover more some other time. But there's no more need for maybes or a sense of ambiguity, because the next game is Tower of Babel. Developed by Elf, it seems to be considered the earliest complete Sword of Moonlight game available. This game is actually done, which means it's time to go through and beat it. You play as a young hero, entering a tower to stop the oncoming threat of monsters. Armed with your very weak dagger, the odds don't seem good until you find a sword that can actually kill something without hitting it 20 times. I was a little worried until that happened. Tower of Babel starts off promising. First off, it has a run button, and second, I can attack. Let's take our victories where we can. The game consists of smaller areas or floors that generally revolve around finding switches to open doors. This helps prevent you from getting lost since there's only a small area to deal with at a time. Once each floor is done, you walk through a spooky silent corridor to the next one, and do that over and over again. Some of the level design isn't the best, mainly these large enemy rooms where I basically just run past them when I can, but I'm having fun. I'm on the 3rd floor now, which is kind of bug themed, and all I have to do is solve this switch puzzle or something. I can't solve the puzzle. I think to progress I need to do something with these switches, but I don't know what. I don't understand the hints, and I can't find a guide or anything online, cause who the heck ever made a walkthrough for this? I'm not even sure the things I think are hints to the puzzle are hints to the puzzle. The only text in the puzzle room is the guy saying he doesn't get how to solve it. Is the puzzle a decoy? Is there something else I need to do to get past this barrier? I want to keep playing. Why do these Sword of Moonlight games have to be like this? You were finished, Tower of Babel. I was supposed to be able to actually beat you. I feel so angry, why, I could go berserk. The next game is Berserker, developed by Oniku. That segue might have sucked, but there's good news. This game actually has an English translation. It's the only game in this video with one, besides the Kingsfield remake. Thanks for that apparently goes to Mr. Richard999, Cert R, and Agent Orange. What matters is now there's no language barrier that can get in my way. I'm gonna do it this time. I'm gonna beat Berserker and nothing will stop me. The game starts and you play as Loki. You get banished to the underworld and need to fight your way out. Walk over to these chests, discover they auto-open and auto-loot, grab the sword, and move on. Berserker puts you in these arenas of sorts, where enemies constantly spawn in, and you kill them until a boss arrives, who drops the key. You move on to the next area, you grab equipment, you get stronger, and you fight more things. It's simple, but it works. Who needs puzzles? Just fight things. You keep going until you get this warning of a powerful enemy, you beat it, and you get a sword that one-shots basically everything. You're having a power fantasy in a Kingsfield game, and it's great. It's fun. You find this dragon, beat it easily by circle strafing, and it's over. It's over in like a half hour. This game had the best movement out of all of them so far, was the most fun, didn't soft lock me on a puzzle, and it's also basically the shortest. Yeah, that figures. Well, at least I beat this one. Following Berserker is a more traditional Kingsfield-like. Neo Under by Aho is actually their second game in this engine. Their first was a game called Deep Under, which appears to be lost. Neo Under itself was lost for a bit until user Kurobake found it. Right off the bat, I could tell Aho was a fan of Kingsfield too. We start off next to a giant enemy as a tempting target for us to get killed trying to fight, and they implemented a fountain glass vial system for healing. They're also a fan of Kingsfield 2 in the way I have no idea where to go. Of the 4 starting pathways, 2 are dead ends, and the other 2 actually end up leading to the same point. While initially confusing, I'll give Aho credit for their interconnected map. I'm still not giving them full marks for map design though, because they're overly big, they branch a lot, and there's no map at all. Man, if only I could get a map. Oh wait, this merchant sells one. It's just very expensive. But you know what? That's okay. I may still have no idea where I'm going, but eventually I make my way through some of the areas. I found a key of some sort, a good weapon. I really want that map though. Let's sell all these gems with no apparent use. They must be that kind of item that's meant to be sold. Now if I can find the map guy, I can buy it. Too bad I don't remember where they were. I explore more, I find and slay the Termite Queen. Man, this really is just like Kingsfield 2. And I rescue a guy who takes gems and turns them into useful items. If Tower of Babel posed a question, Neo Under answered it. I am an idiot. I kept thinking how similar this was to Kingsfield 2, but didn't think they were replicating one of its core mechanics. But wait, I found the map guy. I buy the map with the money I got from the gems, and look, it's a real map. Now I can... Wait, the game's frozen. Well, this is the only game so far I've fallen through the floor to my death. This must just be a one-time glitch. Nope. Opening the map freezes the game. I didn't mean for these sort of Moonlight games to be a weird exercise in suffering, but they are. I seriously consider either starting over or just ending the playthrough here. But no, I will not be defeated. Because the game froze when I reload, I still have the money that I can buy gems with later if I need them. I can work with this. I keep going, I find more areas, I have no idea which is the right way, but slowly I do make what feels like progress. I find locked doors I have no idea how to open and dread that they're where I'm supposed to go, and eventually I stumble my way into finding a special looking door. I walk through it and a cutscene plays. A boss fight. And since this game has taken so many cues from Keysfield 2, I can tell this mirrors the Necron fight near the end of the game. Somehow, I'm close to beating this thing. Now, the first few times he beats me, but then I remember a very important lesson. Keysfield combat is kinda bad, especially in this engine where just about everything staggers when hit. I circle strafe around him at the perfect distance, cast my single spell Wind Cutter, and use the stagger to hit him with melee. He's helpless against my Keysfield skill. And eventually, I win. I was ready to give up on this game, but I beat him. But I know I'm not done. Necron isn't the final boss in his game, and neither is whatever this guy was called. I journey forward, make my way to the final boss room, and find the final boss of Keysfield 1. I then also get destroyed. Okay then, let's think. There was a special looking room that was locked before beating down Necron, but now it's open. It spawns a dragon, and I can tell this is the key to beating the game. With renewed motivation, I find my way back to the guy who sells keys. All that money I got to not buy the map has found its purpose. I open a bunch of chests I couldn't before to get some decent gear, spend the rest of my money on herbs, and tank the dragon's damage. It's a bit close sometimes, but eventually, I beat him. Beyond lies the petrified body of some guy whose lore I don't know. The text on the wall clues me in to use the Mirror of Truth, and he gives me the Dark Slayer. Wielding the legendary sword, I make my way back to the final boss, stunlock him in close range, and I do it. I beat Neo Under. This untranslated pseudo-remake of Keysfield 2 was way more of a rollercoaster of emotions than I expected. I don't understand any of the story, and there's a bunch of keys and doors I have no idea where they go or how to open. Seriously, I think this game has fast travel, but I never found the items to use it. Or maybe I did. I don't know. But what matters is, I didn't give up. I honestly can't say I like this game, but that feeling of persevering through all the problems and seeing the ending made it all feel slightly worth it. Only slightly though. Hey, so last minute edit here. Apparently between me planning out the script, playing the games, and making the video, they found some other previously lost game called Immortality of Time. Kinda throws off the chronological format I was going for, but I guess I'll circle back around to that whenever a part 2 for this video series comes out. Just thought I'd give it a quick mention though. We're coming up to the final 2 games of the video, and as a matter of fact, both were developed by the same guy. Brought to us by Terminus, the first of the 2 we're looking at is Angel Tower. And maybe this is just because it was following the less good Neo Under, but Angel Tower is actually very solid. In the past of Angel Tower, the world was filled with suffering. But one day, angels came and made things good. The people worshipped them, time passed, the worship decreased, and now you and a bunch of other guys are sent to kill the angels because that sounds like a good idea. You enter the titular Angel Tower and get introduced to the game's format. There's a central teleporter in the tower, which you can only access by beating its 8 guardians. Each guardian has its own area, which you can tackle in any order. Some are harder than others, but the game leaves it open which order you do them. This results in Angel Tower having smaller segmented areas which are easier to navigate, and allows the developer to give each one their own gimmick. Some are more combat focused, some are a maze, some work with fake walls. Each area also tends to have its own piece of overpowered equipment to find, making the next area you tackle easier. Angel Tower is honestly very well designed. Even with no map, I rarely if ever felt lost because of its compact, segmented nature. Well, except for the door maze, I had to grab some grid paper for that, but that's intentional. Each environment also feels different from the others due to good texture use. Sometimes they struggle with draw distance and rendering problems, but it's rare. The game design is good, the level design is good, the variety is good. So what's the catch? Every game so far had a catch. Angel Tower unfortunately has a few small issues. One to notice before long is that the game stutters every time the music loops. Like a good half to a full second stutter. It's pretty noticeable and can be annoying when you're in a tough fight. On the topic of tough fights, the combat balance. Some enemy magic attacks feel way too powerful. Even with good gear that should resist it, certain moves would just destroy my health bar, while others would barely do anything. Remember the problem I described with enemy aggro range being too big and then locking onto you from a mile away to snipe you with magic? Yeah, this is where I really started to notice the problem. And then there's stun. The game has a stun status effect, which basically guarantees death if you don't immediately use an item to cure it. I did not care for the stun status. Of course, you may just die right away anyways if you're starting the game for the first time. For some reason, the game is very lethal to begin with. Just about every enemy can 1 or 2 shot me in the beginning. The good news is experience and gold are plentiful, so you can easily level up, buy some equipment, and that initial problem is solved without much effort. It is a problem though. Oh, there's also a glitch or something I encountered. This game actually has an equip load system, or maybe the others did, but this is the first time it came up. Anyways, I would suddenly find myself unable to equip or de-equip any gear, which was a bit of a problem at times. I think this has something to do with equipping gear over your equip load. If you ever come across this problem, go to the item storage menu, store your equipment, and that will de-equip it from you. Then unstore all your equipment and you can actually manage it all. That way you won't be stuck for a while wearing the worst boots and you don't know why. I feel a little bad having my complaints about Angel Tower being longer than the compliments, but seriously, this was a well put together game. Dividing the game into smaller segments to challenge in any order kept things manageable. Gradually being the different guardians and gathering each area's piece of powerful equipment made me feel like I was really progressing. I liked how I could actually accumulate a good amount of gold to buy items. I liked stumbling across a hidden optional boss or two. Angel Tower just had a feeling of genuine competence behind it. I may not have discovered all of its secrets, but I honestly had a good time playing and beating it. And hey, as mentioned, developer Terminus followed up Angel Tower with another game, the Italian named Grande Croce, or Grand Cross as I'll continue calling it. Another finished game for us to beat. Will this be the highlight of the video that shows what an already promising dev can do with some experience under their belt? Well, to start, the game gives us something no other game has before. Difficulty options. You can play on normal or hard. Isn't that cool? I picked normal, of course, as the intended difficulty. The game opens on us in a foggy area. Online descriptions describe a town near the Alps vanishing into the fog and people trying to find it, but I can't remember if there was actual dialogue mentioning that in the game. All I know is that we definitely aren't in the normal world as we journey into the fog. Initially, the game looks promising. The foggy outside map is a bit different from the norm. It's even got these ethereal white trees. They don't look perfect, but it's kinda neat. Except it isn't. These likely aren't meant to be mystical white trees, they're just regular trees missing their textures. And it's not just them. Textureless objects weren't infrequent in this game. Now, for what little documentation this game has, there were patches, up until a 0.03 and 0.04 version, which reportedly fixed some bugs. With that said, I'm not sure if the version of the game I'm playing is the base 1.0 or the patched version, and this will be important context. But that's alright, I've played some scuffed games by this point, so what if it's a little iffy? With Terminus' good design principles and my determination, we can see it through. Playing through, I start to notice some things. For one, the game still starts every time the music loops. But even weirder, all the items are in Italian. All the game's text is in Japanese, except for the items. Each game I look at finds some new way to astound me. After beating the starting area, we eventually arrive at a crossroads of sorts. There's even a merchant who sells us some stuff. From this crossroads we have 3 different directions, each leading to a different area. These paths eventually take you to further crossroads, forming an awkward interconnected map. I honestly like the hub from Angel Tower better. I also liked its smaller maps, because man, some of these areas are too big for their own good. They can be a bit annoying to navigate, some of them having areas within themselves, and as far as I can tell, there's no fast travel or even warp points back to the start when you reach the end of an area. It's needlessly cumbersome design. I'd say they're at least fun to explore, but the rewards are kind of lame. A lot of the time it's just herbs. Sometimes, rarely, it's armor or a magic circle that teaches you a spell, but a lot of the time, chests are just boring. Also, the merchant from the start disappeared, and I'm not sure if that's supposed to happen. I found another, but, you know. There's also, as far as I can tell, no convenient source of free healing, so stock up on herbs. At least enemies drop a decent amount of gold. I persevere and make my way through some areas. I discover this game still kills you very fast until you get armor. I discover this game still has problems with weird damage balancing on some enemy attacks. I grow concerned the game's lack of polish is a bad sign in terms of finishing it, and I come across what I think is the main goal. I discover a special sword which needs 4 gems with the elements to power it up. Continuing on, I find some keys, I don't find other keys, and eventually I find 2 of the gems. I gotta admit, I wasn't keen on finishing this game at times. It was so unpolished that menu options at save points weren't consistent. The save and identify items options would switch per save point. I gradually became worried that these untextured voids were hiding a meant-to-be visible staircase that was impossible for me to see. The game just didn't feel well designed, and I swear a key I had was bugged and not opening doors it should. But it's fine. I beat Angel Tower through all its puzzles, I beat Neo Under despite its lack of polish. And look, I finally found the keys to access this new area and... Is that bridge floating? Is that... Can I have a confession. I didn't beat Grand Cross. I didn't beat it because I don't know if I can. I tried to lower the bridge, but I didn't seem to be able to. Now, maybe this area is optional. Maybe collecting the gems for this sword is optional. Maybe it's possible to beat the game and I just don't know the main path through it all, but I'm done. This game might be labeled as finished, but the version I have isn't. I gave this game an honest try, despite being one shot for broken attacks, despite being hit through walls, and despite not having fun while playing it a lot of the time. I really wanted this game to be the better follow-up to Angel Tower, but it just isn't. I mean, there's good points to Grand Cross, environments have coherent themes to them, they even tend to have their own mechanics like a poison area whose poison you can turn off, or a trap area you can gradually disable. There's actual design taking place here. Terminus has some competency, but actually playing it is rough. Some rooms are a nightmare due to ranged enemies or ones with wide area attacks. Walking through the game is a slog and fast travel would really help. How about putting the healing fountain in a safe area instead of in an area further within the poison area so I have to run a mile to refill my bottles? Grand Cross has elements of good design, but they all get overshadowed by its problems. It's not just that it's inconsistently difficult or tedious or possibly unfinished, it's all those things. But maybe that's what makes it a great point to end the video. I was just a casual fan of Kingsfield, looking to find a hidden gem in these Sword of Moonlight games, to see what there was in this niche corner of the internet. What I got though was a really mixed bag of nevertheless memorable experiences, for better or for worse. From the unfinished Aoi's project in EverQuest, to the unbeaten Tower of Babel and Grand Cross, to the short but sweet Berserker, the long and frustrating Neo Under, to the slightly rough but overall solid Angel Tower. Sometimes you need to play something bad to appreciate when something is done well. From playing these, I think I now appreciate small touches in Kingsfield proper I didn't before. Despite the sour note I'm leaving on, I'm interested in continuing to look at these fan games. But I think I'll take a break for a bit. I can only handle so much Kingsfield at once. And maybe, just maybe, the real treasures of the Sword of Moonlight engine are just beyond the horizon. See you next time. Eventually.